Hi, hello, and welcome. I'm definitely not yapping, and we're talking about the Undermined Changes development notes, whatever you want to call it. Basically, the Season 2 patch notes are now on the PTR. For the PTR are here, so we get a glimpse into what the changes are going to be. This seems to be the bulk of them, and when I say bulk, I mean bulk, because there's a lot of changes here. A lot of classes are being sort of mini reworked and stuff, so there's so many patch notes to go through. So I'm breaking out my coverage of this into different roles. So I've talked about tanks, now I'm talking about healers. Let's see how exactly healers are going to be changed. Will this change the enjoyment of the healer role? Will this make the healer role better? We'll see. My opinion right off the bat is not really, because these are changes to individual specializations, not changes to healing. So that being said, let's take a look at what the changes are for the different classes. I'm not going to read, every single note because there's no point. You can read them yourself. I'm just going to talk about what I think about these changes and what the general implications of them are. So we're going to start off with Druid. Druid has a lot of talent changes and some really cool talents. But the key thing for Druid, for Restoration Druid, is basically you're going to be able to pick between whether you want to cat weave or spell weave, I guess is what I'll call it, because you can't boomkin weave, you can't turn into boomkin anymore. Because you'll get new talents called Circle of the Wild and Circle of the Heavens, which are going to be, if I understood this correctly, a choice node. So you can choose Circle of the Wild, which gives you 25% more physical damage dealt by your abilities. For everyone else, it's 5. So this seems like a must-pick node for all druids. But you're going to go for 25% for Resto Druid. If you want to cat weave, if you want to just spam Moonfire and Starfire, Wrath, whatever the heck, Sunfire, you're going to go with Circle of the Heavens. Now, why did Blizzard do this? Their explanation is, let's go over to their actual explanation. Hold on, here's Restoration. They also reduce damage done by 20%. Now you might be thinking, okay, was this necessary? And I think not really. Maybe they just wanted to make sure that the damage doesn't get out of hand proportionally, but let's see what the developer note says about this damage reduction. So it says, this damage reduction keeps Restoration Druid's physical or magic damage dealt equivalent to previous patches when selecting the Circle of the Wilds or Circle of the Heavens talents. What they mean by this is basically you'll do as much damage as you did before, but only if you select these talents, right? We are making this change with the goal of moving Restoration Druids toward utilizing either their damaging physical abilities or magic spells instead of weaving between them both in order to reduce the damage rotation complexity. So basically, they don't want you to be spamming, go into cat form, then rake, shred, rip, rake a couple of other mobs, and then go out and spam Moonfire and Sunfire on the mobs. They don't want you to have to do all that and then also heal at the same time. What they want you to do is to do one or the other. They want you to either go cat form and rake everything and then put a rip out, or they want you to go and just stand there, Moonfire every single mob, Sunfire, all that good stuff, and just blast them with spells, right? It's one or the other instead of both, and I feel like this is such a good change. I think that you are still going to be somewhat incentivized to do both, but it's not going to be as important. What's going to be really important is to get your all your bleeds out, or to get all your dots out, your magic dots out, not both. If you have the extra time in your groups just blasting, kicking everything, stopping things, as if stops are fucking useful in this expansion right now. Sorry, pardon my French. But if you have a group that's blasting like that, you can just do both if you want. Sure, why not? But this is making it this is disincentivizing you from doing it, or rather it's more incentivizing you to do only one of them. Now, there's another gigantic change to Restoration Druid, and I think this thing is massive. I haven't healed since Dragonflight as a Restoration Druid, but I think this is such a good change. So it's a change to the mastery. So let's take a look at this. Mastery Harmony effectiveness increased by 30%. Now reduces its bonus with each additional heal over time effect. So basically, the first one that you apply is much more important than the 7th one. You just got to get a few hots on to get most of the effect. Not all of your hots on to get the full effect. If you're not familiar, the way Restoration Druid works is the mastery. The more hots you have on a target, the more healing you will do to this target. So you're very incentivized in the current state of the game to put as many hots on someone as possible. That way all of your hots will also do more healing, and your direct healing spells will also do even more healing thanks to the mastery. But the change that they're doing is basically they're making it so that you only need the first few healing over time effects before you're able to get your most of your bonus. Not all of your bonus. You're never going to get all your bonus without all of your hots, but most of your bonus can be gotten from the first few hots. I don't know the exact scaling of this. Increased by 30% doesn't mean much. Is it 30% of the whatever percent increase, or is it straight for 30%, like 30% more healing for the first first hot? I would assume it's 30% of whatever percent you had, which is still significant. So let's read the actual note. This update to Mastery Harmony is intended to reward more heavily the first few heal over time effects applied to allies, while tempering the scaling at large heal over time counts. This scaling will still always make it a bonus to have additional heal over time effects on the target. So they're not punishing you for wasting mana or whatever for putting more hots on it. You will always get more by putting on more hots. But what isn't going to happen is you're just not going to... They're allowing you to... I think that's a good word to use. They're allowing you to stop spamming multiple hots on a single target or multiple targets to get a bunch of hots up. So I think what this will do is it'll improve your global economy. You no longer need to spend, let's just say you need to spend 10 globals to prepare for a big damaging event. Now you need to use 6 instead of 10. You know what I mean? Because you need fewer hots on the group to be running at the same time as to achieve as much of the effect. Sorry, I've probably over-explained this to hell, but I just think this is such a good change. I think this is going to be a huge change to how damage is dealt by Restoration Druids, in conjunction with this change to only having to do one type of damage instead of having to weave in both just to get the most out of it. Again, I think still people are going to be min-maxing and doing both types of damage, but it might not even be worth the globals. You might just be better off staying in cat form and doing shreds or whatnot because the physical damage is so much higher. I don't yet know the full implications of this because I don't know. I just haven't run much as a Resto Druid, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm sure people much smarter than myself will figure out whether this is a great thing or not. There's also a few other talents. I might have mentioned this in my tanking changes video. There's a symbiotic relationship, which I think is great. There's also Asena's renewal. This is great for any druid. Every druid should take this talent. Basically, it just gives you 10% of your health back whenever you take 12% of your maximum health in one hit every 30 seconds. That's great. That's going to be topping, for DPS druids, this is going to be topping the healing meters every single dungeon. There is, and I almost completely forgot about this, but this one has me the most excited, I think. Fluid form has been updated. Skull Bash can now be used in any form and shifts you into cat form if necessary. It turns Skull Bash into an actual very useful button. It was obviously very useful as a cat weaving Resto Druid, but now it's useful for everyone that plays Resto Druid because you finally have an interrupt. When you press it, it'll turn you into cat, and I'm assuming that's off the global cooldown. If not, it's freaking useless. It's basically the same thing as having the macro, but having seen how the how the fluid form works, I believe this to be a massive buff, and I'm super excited about how this is going to work. Now, the next healer coming up is Evoker. There's some changes to the base class, which is Rescue, basically gives a freedom effect. Rescue now clears movement and pairing effects and from you and your target. This is a nice little buff. I can think of plenty of places where you can use that to remove slows or roots. And Sleepwalk has a slightly longer cast. I don't know why that's in there, but you know, have it be like that. Maybe it's a balancing change to make it the same as everyone else. But for Preservation and for Flame Shaper, there are a few changes. Let's cover Flame Shaper. Let's go through the developer's notes for it. It says, we're looking to improve some of the weaker talents for Flame Shaper and enable them to be more effective in dungeon content. Instead of increasing duration and spreading Fire Breath and Dream Breath, Flame Shapers can now cast Fire Breath and Dream Breath more often and have them deal more damage/healing in a compressed window of time. In addition, we're adding a way to opt out of Enkindle so that Echo builds can function better with Flame Shaper. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure what Echo builds are. I don't know enough about Evoker healing to really comment on this, but it seems like this is just a nice thing. If you want to play the Echo build, whatever that is, you have a chance to do so because you don't have to play Enkindled, What that actually means, I don't know. Maybe a preservation healer can let us know in the comments what exactly the implications of this is. But it sounds exciting. It sounds like they're just enabling more build diversity, and that's always a good thing. So you can read these patch notes. I can't really comment too much on them because I don't know enough, but it seems like a good thing. Dream Breath is cool, so you get to do it more often. Maybe that's a cool thing, and Fire Breath as well. So this might be a DPS buff as well. I don't know. Especially in lower keys, using it more often is better than it being more powerful or lasting longer. So yeah. There's also big augmentation changes, but I'm not going to talk about those. Actually, they do affect healers. So let's talk a slight tiny bit about augmentation. Maybe. Nah, I didn't talk about it in tanks. We're not going to talk about it here. But basically, Ebonmite no longer applies to tanks and healers. So that's going to be very, very interesting because it's no longer a survivability buff as much to get augmentations evokers into your group. There's more changes to preservation, though, which I think are really nice. One is, I think, controversial, and the other is just a straight up buff. So Dream Breath now heals yourself and 5 injured allies. It used to be just healing 5 injured allies. So the notes are, this guarantees that a Dream Breath heal over time effect will always be on you. So you never have to purposefully miss allies with the breath cone in order to make sure you heal yourself. So this is just nice. This is great. For dungeon content, I don't think this matters because 5 injured allies is the whole dungeon group, but for raids this is, I'm sure, a very welcome change. Now Dream Breath, this one is the more controversial change, I think, because it removes some skill expression. Let me first read it and then I'll tell you what I think about it. Dream Breath and Reversion no longer snapshot with Mastery Lifebinder. Instead, they will re-evaluate the mastery bonus each time they tick based on the target's current health and yours. So there's no more snapshotting with Dream Breath and Reversion, so you can't really min-max it using snapshotting to make it heal more for you. Instead, it'll just, like it says, it'll just reevaluate every time it ticks. This, I think, is a good way to reduce cognitive load for players that somewhat care about min-maxing, I guess. Because if you don't care, you're just going to use it either way. But if you care about min-maxing, you might still want less cognitive load. But at the same time, it's removing some of the skill expression of the spec. Anytime you remove snapshotting, you're making my life easier because I hate snapshotting, but you're also making a few people unhappy because they would like to have their skill expression like, hey, look how much I can heal because I'm so good at timing my Dream Breath and Reversion and snapshotting it to a way where it heals the most. So that's why I say it's a slightly controversial. I don't know how many people care about it. Maybe everyone's super happy about this change, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here. There might be people who don't like it all that much. Then we're going to scroll past 700 miles of Hunter lines. There's a lot of changes for Hunter, quite a few changes for Mage as well. And here we go with Mistweaver Monk. So there's not that huge of a change here to Mistweaver Monk, honestly. There's a few key things that they've changed. Basically, they added a talent that lets you treat Shaman's Gift as a single target spot heal. It makes it instant cast and increases healing by 150, but it affects only a single ally. They also slightly changed the Crackling Jade Lightning extra damage from Jade Empowerment to be more focused on the primary target and to cleave the other targets less. So it used to be 800% of its damage to 5 targets. Now it's 2000% to the primary target and 25% of that to the other targets. So this ends up being about 500% of the damage, and this is obviously more. Does this mean more damage? Is this a buff or a nerf? I don't know. It's an AoE nerf if you have to clear everything out, but if there's a prior target, it's pretty good because you're dealing more damage to that prior target. Does it end up being the same amount of damage overall? I don't know. I don't do math that well, but that is one change that's happening. Dance of the Wind is being redesigned, which is the talent that used to give you 10% dodge and an additional 10% until you dodge, but now it just reduces physical damage taken, which is finally useful for both Monk, both Mistweaver and Windwalker. For Brewmaster, there's no changes because Blizzard hates them, but Brewmaster still gets the 10% dodge, so it's perfectly fine. It doesn't change anything. I like this because it didn't make sense to have Mistweavers and Windwalkers try to get hit so they can dodge something, you know. This is pretty nice. There's some general changes. Now, one thing that really stands out is this Blackout Kick damage increased by 75%. That sounds like a lot. And Spinning Crane Kick damage increased by 30%. That also sounds like a lot. But what they've done is they've moved some of this cleave damage from Jadefire Awakening to the base Blackout Kick damage. So instead of your cleave doing a lot, instead of your cleave doing a lot of damage, now the base kick does a lot of damage, and this just does 20% of this damage. So it ends up evening out, but what it does is it increases the value of Blackout Kick in single targets significantly. So further changes along these lines are Invoke Chi-Ji, the Red Crane, now causes 3 Gust of Mist per target, was 1, but only activates once per Blackout Kick and Rushing Wind Kick cast. So what this means is, here they elaborate on it. So they say, teachings of the Monastery Kicks will continue to function to activate additional gusts, but not from their cleave damage. What this means is, instead of you having to cleave with Blackout Kick to get the 3 Gusts of Mist per target, you can now get 3 Gusts of Mist per Blackout Kick, even when it's single target. This is a huge single target buff to Blackout Kick healing and Invoke Chi-Ji in single target. I absolutely love this change. Thank you, Blizzard. I love Mistweaver. It's the first healer I really played at any sort of competitive is such a stupid word to use, at any sort of meaningful level, like in in-game. And I got it to 3K in season 3 of Dragonflight when it was really good. But it's really, this change is so good. I just love it. It changes, basically for AoE, it changes nothing, but for single target, it increases the healing done by Blackout Kick and Invoke Chi-Ji by a lot. And also they moved the Shaman's Gift talent location. That really doesn't matter all that much. They moved it up because everyone was taking it. So you can now access it sooner, and also you can access it. It's not competing as much with the other nodes later on in the tree that are basically must-haves or give you much more value, which is always a good thing, right? If there's something in the last part of the tree that you always take, moving it to a lower part of the tree is just a pure win. Like Divine Toll being moved to the middle part instead of the end was a pure win for Paladins in general, because you always take Divine Toll as every spec. Shaman's Gift is getting the same sort of treatment, and that's awesome. Now, Paladin healing is getting a sort of a change here. They're basically moving most of your healing to be in the raw healing from Flash of Light and Holy Light, without having to use Infusion of Light to make those spells actually look like a good button to press. So, and they say it here. So Flash of Light and Holy Light have a lot of power tied into talents modifying their effectiveness, and we would like these spells to be more effective to cast without these talents, and casting these spells without Infusion of Light active to be a more viable option. So what they've done is basically they've nerfed the mana cost of Flash of Light by a third, like by 2/3, sorry. It's 0.6%, it used to be 1.8% of your mana. But they also reduced the healing that it does, which is, I guess, fair, but also kind of scary, because sometimes you just need a freaking Flash of Light to heal someone real quick, and it doing a quarter less healing, like that is a lot. So I don't know. I haven't healed as Holy since one very tragic experiment of doing one episode of Holy healing in a series, and that was miserable. But Holy Paladins, let me know. What do you feel about this change? Now, furthermore, Holy Light now healing increased by 90%, and then Infusion of Light has been nerfed. It is now 30% instead of 100. This is a net gain in healing by Holy Light, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty nice. And then Infusion of Light now increases the healing of Flashlight by 30%. It used to be that it reduces the mana cost. So they basically permanently nerfed the mana cost of Flash of Light and made it heal a bit more than it used to with Infusion of Light. They also changed some stuff about Inflorescence of the Sunwell, where it used to be, it makes Infusion of Light better by 15%, and they made it slightly less powerful for Holy Light, where it was 50 and now it's 15, but that's because they buffed the crap out of Holy Light healing, so I understand that. Echoing Blessings and Unending, Unbound Freedom. Basically, Holy was the only spec that didn't have access to the double freedom. What I mean by this is Retribution and Protection could take a point into Unbound Freedom, and if they give someone freedom, they get it themselves. Now, Holy has finally gotten the same treatment. It's a choice node between Echoing Blessings, so that you can keep it if you like it and have it, and Unbound Freedom. And they also made Echoing Blessings just as fast as Blessing of Freedom. So it's 30, it was 15. So now it's basically the same, but do you want it on 2 people or not? They also changed some Lightsmith stuff, nothing that I really care about. This is actually a huge nerf to the damage. I feel like this is almost this from 180 down to 20. I feel like it's almost a typo. Maybe there's a 0 missing. I don't know. Like, this is just such a huge nerf. is Lightsmith Holy Paladin doing too much damage? I can't say that I've seen many Holy Paladins doing ridiculous amounts of damage, but you guys let me know. I don't play Holy, so I can't really say. Priest is getting a lot of changes. There's a lot of changes to Priest, both Discipline and Holy. I think for Discipline, the biggest thing is basically they want to give you more atonement uptime and ways to get atonement quickly on targets by making Overloaded with Light, the talent, more easily accessible. So you can get the talent more easily. That's what I'm trying to say. And they also changed Purge the Wicked a little bit, and Twilight Equilibrium is now more useful thanks to it. But the gist of the changes is you need to use Shadow Word Pain more and make sure that it's up and running on multiple enemies, because they took some of the damage from Entropic Rift, so you can see it here, and put it into Shadow Word Pain. And they also buffed Oracle's damage by using Shadow Word Pain and buffing Shadow Word Pain, because they buffed Shadow Word Pain. And their explanation for this is Shadow Word Pain should be an important part of Discipline's healing on atonement targets to provide a steady stream of healing over time. Its damage has been weaker than we would like, especially compared to other spells in the kit like Entropic Rift. So we're bringing it up and reducing Entropic Rift's damage. This has a side effect of boosting Oracle's damage comparatively to Voidweaver. So yeah, we boost Oracle's damage because Oracle doesn't have the Entropic Rift nerf, and we get more of a reliance on basically you treat Shadow Word Pain as a hot that is increased by how many targets you can apply it to. So it's nice. I can't tell you how big of a change this is. I don't play Priest. I played Shadow a little bit, but I don't play Discipline or Holy. I know a bit more about Holy because Danny really enjoys Holy and she tells me about it. She also enjoys Discipline, but sometimes it feels a bit too punishing when the group makes too many mistakes. That's a discussion for something else entirely. But yeah, they changed up a few things here. I'm not going to read all of these patch notes. You can read that yourself because it's pointless. The key changes are what I'm talking about. And if you think I missed something very important, please do share it in the comments. I'd love to learn more about it. Now for Holy, they've made quite a few changes. Now they added a certain optional playstyle, and they also added they made some big changes by removing Circle of Healing and making Prayer of Healing more powerful through certain interactions. So let's see. We're aiming to provide a better experience when using Divine Hymn while pulling back on the number of raid cooldowns available to the specialization. We're also doing some consolidation in the tree by removing Circle of Healing and adding more interactions with Prayer of Healing. Finally, we're looking to provide options for a gameplay style centered around renew uptime in addition to existing playstyles. So there's now a new playstyle that you can run, and maybe it's great, maybe it's not. We'll see. We'll end up finding out. It's very reminiscent of the I think that was Dragonflight season 3, maybe. I don't know what exact season it was, but there was something where you really wanted to have renew up all the time because it would give you procs. Here, you just want it to be up because renew heals a lot. But we'll get into that as we go through these changes. So they changed a bunch of talents, but the key thing is they are now making it so that basically you have a choice to... Let's talk about the renew thing actually first. So the way you do the renew build, from what I could gather, is you take Lasting Word's Holy Word Serenity, applies 12 seconds of renew to its target, and Holy Word Sanctify applies 4 seconds of renew to allies it heals. So you would take this, and that would help you keep renew uptime high. Another thing you could take is Empowered Renew. So Renew reduces the cooldown of Sanctify by an additional 6 seconds and heals for 60% more when cast, but has a 12-second cooldown. So this turns it into a cooldown, a short one, hopefully hasted, I'm not sure. But you can apply this, then use Holy Word Serenity to put 12 seconds on another target, then use Holy Word Sanctify to apply it to a few other targets, and then you have this on everyone, and it's healing for 60% more. That's my interpretation, just reading the patch notes. Now, another thing that affects it is later on we see here in Prismatic Echoes now increases the healing of renew by 15 to 30%. That's a lot. And in Oracle, what we also see is Preemptive Care now increases the duration of renew by 25%. It used to be 6 seconds. So why do they do this? Is because you have that AoE ability, Sanctify, applying 4 seconds of it. If it was increased by 6 seconds, that would disproportionately make Sanctify powerful because renew is powerful with those other talents. So they wanted to increase it by 25%, which is 1 second. So you get 1 extra second there. And if it's 12 seconds with 25, you get 4 extra seconds. So it feels like overall a nerf, but with the changes they've made to Renew and how you can play with Renew, it ends up adding up to a playstyle that you could potentially explore. Is it good? Is it meta? Is it the best thing I've ever seen since sliced bread? I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't played this and I don't know. But it could be just something different to play and try if you find that super fun, which is always good. Hopefully it's very balanced and you can choose and pick and choose every dungeon which one of the two you're going to play and end up keep timing the same keys. Who knows? I don't think it will be, because usually that's not how that works with Blizzard, but you know, could be fun. Now another thing that they've changed is they've introduced basically... I take this with a caveat, but from what I understand, you didn't really run Circle of Healing and Prayer of Healing in dungeons. You would mostly just run the like light weaving thing, and you would heal and flash heal and heal and flash heal and heal and flash heal and so on and so forth. But now they're making it so that a lot of talents empower Prayer of Healing and make it worth casting, and they're removing Circle of Healing so it takes fewer globals to ramp up with Prayer of Healing. So there's a bunch of talent changes here. I'm not going to get into it, but the key idea is you would use Prayer of Healing, and they've also added it so that Lightweaver can now also be consumed by Prayer of Healing in addition to heal. So when you need AoE, instead of healing with heal multiple targets, you just cast Prayer of Healing a few times and flash heal in between. And there's also a talent that makes Prayer of Healing heal the first target, and that's kind of hidden here as part of another thing, but Prayerful Litany has been redesigned. Now causes the primary target of Prayer of Healing to be healed for 75% more. So if you have one person that's taking a shit ton of damage, and the rest of the group is being cleaved from it, you can focus your Prayers of Healing on them and do cleave healing. I think that's really cool. I think that might be a fun playstyle. I don't know for sure, but it gives you an AoE option, especially when playing as Oracle or whatever. Slight caveat, I haven't really played Priest much, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, but these are the changes that are being done to Priest. Now, I don't know if there's anything else that's particularly significant. I think there might be the, Afterlife no longer grants a resurrection cast during Spirit of Redemption. This might be a notable change. I don't know. I haven't noticed many people use this, so I don't think it's that big a deal. But let me know if you're really upset about this being a thing. Okay, now, I think Shaman is the last healer we need to cover. There's some nice quality of life changes. Ghost Wolf Visual have been updated to scale with player model and have been made more transparent to reduce visual clutter. That's nice. Lightning Bolt has a new spell visual. Ancestral Guidance has been removed, which is reducing the number of healing cooldowns as well. Pretty nice, I guess. There's a lot of changes to enhancement, and I think they're super amazing, so we'll check those out at some point when I cover DPS classes. But Restoration, developers notes. Our updates to Restoration Shaman are focused on simplification, condensing keybind space, and adding support to Riptide-focused builds. So, make it easier because there's too many buttons, make it less cluttered because there's 500 keybinds, and let people that want to spam Riptide. Cool. There's a bunch of changes here. Basically, they tied Mana Tide Totem into Healing Tide Totem, and I think they also reduced some other things. They've removed Primordial Wave. Obviously, they removed Mana Tide Totem, and that's all great. Can't say there's a huge change. There's something here about Downpour not overlapping so that people they can recast some ability without activating Downpour or whatever. I'm not sure I understand this change. If somebody could explain this to me, please do. I'm sorry for being useless, but I really don't understand this. When I first read it, I thought that these numbers were flipped around because it didn't make sense to me. So if you could explain this to me, I'd be super grateful. But there's something that I wanted to say. There's some big change here. There it is. New talent. Therazane's Resilience. Earth Shield and Water Shield no longer lose charges and are 115% effective. So it buffs them by 15%, and you don't have to reapply them when you get hit or the target gets hit, whoever you put your Earth Shield on. So you slap that bad boy on the tank and you freaking forget about it, or you move it around to whoever, but you don't have to keep reapplying it. That is insane quality of life improvement. I think this is this is very, very, very nice. The rest of these changes, I really don't know. Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem now triggers after casting Healing Tide Totem. Again, removing a button here, if I'm understanding this correctly. I don't play Restoration Shaman much, so I can't really say. And that's it for the healer changes. I guess one more healer change is that they're adding a tank for Bran in Delves, and now you can go heal him while he stands in random AoEs and takes a bunch of damage because Bran's AI is pretty poopy, but not that big of a change for M+, is it? Okay, so, well, with all these changes, what is my opinion? Will this change how healing feels? Will it make healing more fun in The War Within, in World of Warcraft, in Season 2? Nah, not really. I don't think so, because these are changes to individual specs. Sure, some of these changes do seem fun. They seem to improve quality of life, certain things. But the core issue still remains is if your defensives don't use one of their 2 or 3 if your players don't use one of their 2 or 3 defensives when a damage event is going off, you could be the best healer in the world. They're going to die because it's just meant to kill them. And that's okay, right? That's a design choice. We would like that changed. Speaking as a healer, I would like to be able to just blast healing, and then if people don't use their defensives, they still don't die. Defensives are a nice to have, not a must have, and I don't know. That's just my take on it. Sorry, I'm yapping about it a bit too much. I got into the whole defensive bloat issue that everyone's talking about. But basically, I don't think this will address the issue of healing being miserable, pugging as a healer also being miserable. I say miserable, it's not necessarily. You can run into good groups, and it could be super fun. But sometimes some runs are pretty rough. But what do you think? Maybe you think these changes are enough to make healing fun again on certain specs. Some have gotten more attention, some have gotten less attention. Restoration seems to have gotten the short end of the sticker on this one. While, for instance, Resto Druid has gotten a lot of quality of life, and a healer or Priest is getting quite a bit. Lots of changes there. Preservation getting a few improvements. So yeah, let me know what you think. And that is, I think, pretty much it for this yap about healer patch notes in Undermined. So if you enjoyed it, drop a like. Let me know what you liked about it in a comment down below. If you had fun, make sure you subscribe because there's more patch note yapping coming. And that's pretty much it. Catch you in the next one.